So, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today, wherein the webinar today is focused on discussing about the future of procurement and how aligning with enterprise IT strategy is the sweet spot for leveraging all your existing investment. So, before we begin this webinar, I just wanted to go through some of the basic housekeeping notes. So, this is going to be a very insightful session for all of you, and feel free to use the Q&A panel or the chat box of the Zoom webinar for the questions which you have while the speakers are presenting. And we will be taking all the questions at the end of the session. Also, don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and other social media channels, wherein you will get a lot of latest procurement updates from Aavenir and from Spend Matters. And lastly, if you feel that we have missed something out, then please feel free to write back to us to the email mentioned on the screen. So let me quickly introduce today's speaker, starting with Nick. Nick, also known as Nicholas Heidsman, is part of research team at Spend Matters, where he primarily focuses on helping procurement leaders with contract management and other source-to-pay solutions. With Nick, we also have Vikram bringing in 22 years of experience and specialization in domain areas like contract lifecycle management, obligation management, RFX management, AP automation, and CPQ, that is configure price quote domain. So without further ado, let's begin today's webinar. Nick, over to you.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. We know another technology discussions mediated by what may feel like yet another Zoom session is a hard sell, so we appreciate you being here. And speaking of technology, here's a question for you. Procurement and IT at your company, friends or foes? Unfortunately, the answer is not always friends. Here at Spend Matters, we advise procurement organizations on how to select the best technologies to their unique needs. Yet, all too often, we see technology selections go off the rails because of conflicting visions for digital investment between IT and procurement. There are plenty of reasons for this. On the one hand, procurement typically wants the best technology it can afford, with the best features that fit its vision of the best function it can be. A lot of the time, it can mean SaaS software like source-to-pay suites to do that, or best-of-breed tools like contract lifecycle management. IT understands this, but it has other interests to protect too. There may be concerns around integration of new systems, which always bring hidden costs. There can be risks around adoption, where procurement picks a new tool but can't get other stakeholders to use it. There can even be confusion around prior investments, where IT thinks procurement already has access to the tools they need, even if procurement knows what they have is insufficient. These issues probably are familiar to you too. In fact, we just had technical action the past couple of months that was going really well. The company had sorted through a bunch of demos and found its ideal pick for a P2P suite. Yet, when they went back to the business for final approval, they got a lot of pushback because of the ERP ecosystem they were already in. What ended up happening was the procurement group ultimately was moved onto the ERP provider's own P2P solution instead of the one they had originally chosen. And I know that's a sad story, but there's an important lesson there I want to highlight, that alignment is critical. And no, I'm not talking about just technology. I'm actually talking about procurement in general, because in large part, high performance procurement is all about ensuring that you maintain strategic alignment with other stakeholders and the broader business. To illustrate that point, I've pulled a couple of charts from Deloitte's 2019 Global CPO Survey, which Spend Matters had the honor of helping with analysis and writing with that year. And one of the things we collaborated with Deloitte on was creating an index of what we called complexity masters. These were standout respondents that were differentiated from the typical respondents as high-performing peers. The quick explanation of how we did that is we filtered responses by those who were excelling on a set of key performance criteria and by those who were operating in what we called high complexity industries. And the differentiators we found drive some really important points home. As you can see here in figure 1, a lot of the ways complexity masters outperform their peers have to do with the ability to align and partner. Alignment and effectiveness as a business partner, as you can see highlighted here, are pretty self-explanatory, but look at the gap between complexity masters and their peers, as much as by 50% in a couple of cases. And that top one there on spend influence is a really good way to drive home this point, because to get better results in terms of savings and stakeholder alignment, you need to be involved earlier, which means at the point of needs identification rather than farther downstream, as procurement all too often is stuck at, where vendors may have already been identified and they're asked to influence an event in a way that they could do better farther upstream. So the question is then, how do you get that alignment? And it starts with building a better understanding of cross-functional needs. IT may seem like it's in opposition to procurement's plans, but only if it's viewed as a roadblock. And the reality is, IT has some pretty smart points to consider. Let me ask it this way. Are you sure that your chosen tool will result in better alignment and focus on strategic work? Or could it create inadvertent misalignment in the process? We all know that no technology implements itself. And for all the success stories out there, there are also a fair share of horror stories. This is again something we found in the Deloitte study. Although interestingly, those complexity masters we just talked about seem to have just as many issues as their peers. As you can see from some of the figures here, also taken from the Deloitte survey, digital investments are often creating more complexity rather than just eliminating it. The three largest challenges procurement organizations face in terms of tech adoption and implementation are poor data quality and standardization, an inability to generate analytics and insights across systems, and too many fragmented solutions, whether those solutions are homegrown, redundant, or best of breed. Simply put, the survey found that CPOs were feeling the effects of digital complexity. A lot of the CPOs pointed their fingers at data governance as the culprit. Too many systems, poor standardization, and insufficient resources within procurement and IT alike to manage it all. This is exactly the kind of stuff we're talking about when you say, we need you to consider the technology you're picking, not just on a feature level, but also at a platform level. Sure, the system might have a great user experience, and it might have all the features you set out for in your specific RFI, but if it doesn't solve these core data standardization issues at the same time, you may be digging yourself a new hole rather than solving your own problems. And that said, we'd love to hear from you. We've got a quick poll to run with you guys. We want to know, do any of these problems sound familiar or hit close to home?
So give us a couple of seconds. We are getting the results. Okay, so I'm just sharing my results.
Yeah, so the results are very clear. 83% of respondents here say yes, they've heard of that. 2 saying no. Those 2 are lucky, because unfortunately, the 83% there, that's what we see in the study. It's what we hear all the time, and one of the reasons we're here to talk today about platforms. Interestingly, these issues around data governance, integration, systems proliferation, they're exactly what's creating more discussion around enterprise platforms. And since we're collaborating with our friends here at Aavenir today, I'll use ServiceNow as an example. For those who are unfamiliar, ServiceNow is an enterprise SaaS platform that started in the IT service management world, think ticketing, SLA management. But the vendor has rapidly expanded to what it calls a workflow company, where any workflow, form, project, or data can be managed from this central configurable platform. It's now not just IT, but also employees, customers, internal, external workflows. Basically, just about anything can be encompassed as it relates to business activity. What we're looking at here is a figure from ServiceNow's investor presentation. While we don't need to take it literally, except for the ones that are reported, the illustration of why they feel their total potential market is potentially way bigger than it already is I think an interesting way to contextualize our conversation. ServiceNow is seeing huge momentum because it addresses exactly these challenges of enterprise level governance, of eliminating integration challenges and the like. Here's a quote from their CEO, Bill McDermott, and how he put it in an interview right after he took the helm. He said, right now, I believe the total addressable market of ServiceNow is limitless in the sense that if you really think about how broken most enterprises are and how messed up their workflow and business processes are, and how unpleasant using these old systems are for the users, we could create a revolution where business users in the enterprise demand ServiceNow get the story straight by aggregating these workflows of various platforms, which of course the CEO of a company wants to talk like that. But you have to admit, when he's talking about messed up systems and how things are broken and how you want to get people demanding a revolution for straightened out workflows for ease of use, it's a pretty compelling point. And like we were talking about with the survey, if even the biggest and most adept procurement organizations are struggling with exactly these types of problems, it means the problems are likely universal, even down to the smallest companies. In fact, that's a scenario that Aavenir knows intimately. Vikram knows firsthand how companies are using platforms like ServiceNow to better organize their enterprise activities. And that's also a big reason why Aavenir is building its source-to-pay solutions directly on the Now platform.
All right, so thank you. I'll take over from here. And once again, very good morning to everyone. Welcome to this webinar. I really thank you for being with us today and giving us your extremely valuable time. My name is Vikram Chakrabarti, and I lead product pre-sales globally at Aavenir. Now, before I begin, I'd also like to thank Nick for setting that context marvelously. Nick, thank you for that. You really hit upon some very important and relevant aspects, which I want to talk about. By bringing that alignment factor between different stakeholders that may have differing interests or just different points of views. And that Deloitte survey that you brought up there really brought into focus one top thing as a key takeaway, and that is alignment. Organizations that have been successful at bringing that alignment and bridging that gap across departments, across functions, they have seen tremendous success in terms of better and faster decision making across the board, of course, needless to say. And to the poll that was conducted, and we just saw that 83% of you kind of those problems resonated, but there was that 17% for whom that problem didn't really resonate. I'm sure that what we've got to say here today is you're going to find some takeaway from that for each and every one of you, for the entire 100% of the people that are here today with us. So just stay on with us. But the million-dollar question is how? How do we bring that alignment? And to now get a little more specific to our topic of today, that question then becomes, how do we bring that alignment between procurement, on the one hand, that wants the best possible technology that meets their requirements, makes things virtually touchless, and all of those good things. And IT, on the other hand, that wants a technology that's easier to maintain and manage and does not overburden their already overburdened IT staff. To understand this, next slide, please, Adi. So to understand this, let us first take a look at the procurement process and what are the challenges they face today. And undoubtedly, you would agree, procurement is the backbone of any organization. I mean, they say that, I quote, you need to buy things to make the things you sell. But what if your buying process is not efficient and seamless? And most of you would agree that the entire procurement process today is broken. It is siloed. There's lack of collaboration. There's delay in the processes. This results in a lot of lack of visibility, and there are unexplained delays. And the impact is more significant than one can imagine. Like, for example, you may just end up buying at higher prices, which means things you sell will become costlier. Or you may not buy enough of the things at the right time, hence not produce enough things to sell, which means you will leave an unfulfilled demand in the market. Well, either case, there will be a drop in your revenue. So what you really need is a technology that helps connect the processes together into a seamless workflow. For example, from forecasting the needs, which is where the whole procurement process starts, right? To issuing out your RFPs, awarding contracts, negotiating the contracts, and all the way ultimately to making payments against your invoices that you receive from your vendors, suppliers. This whole process needs to be strung together into a unified workflow that provides ample visibility into where things stand at any given point of time. And also, it should foster a spirit of seamless collaboration between different stakeholders in the organization, thus overall improving the quality of experience of work for every person that's involved. And we want to do this by saving them time. Time from what? Time from all the routine and mundane tasks, fixing problems every day, every minute, firefighting virtually all the time. We really want to take them from being overworked and frustrated to having the ability to spending more time at home. You spend more time at home with your family or just doing whatever it is that you love doing. That's the ideal state that we want to really get to. But then, so how do we go there? Maddie, next slide, please. So we know now with all this, what procurement really wants. We've just discussed that just now. But for IT, the maintenance and management of the system is top priority. Obviously, that's, I mean, needless to say, it's very valid. So it's a different set of priorities that they're focused on. They're not against a new technology. They, by all means, would like to help procurement to get a new technology that helps them in their work, but they have their priorities. So then coming back to the question of aligning IT and procurement, how do we do that? Now, the answer is simple, and it's now time to reveal it. What you need is a third external factor of commonality that can polarize both parties to align. Quite a mouthful, but that factor in our case is the platform, the technology platform. ServiceNow. Okay, let's understand this a little more, okay? ServiceNow as a platform, what does it offer? Okay, so number one, it offers a common data model that is scalable to address the needs of every business process in your organization. I'm sure you know this, that you need to have a good, robust, scalable data model so that all your business processes, workflows can be supported, right? Number two, ServiceNow offers a flexible and configurable user interface design paradigm. Number three, it offers a highly scalable workflow engine. And number four, not the least, of course, there's many more things, but we'll just limit to these four. It also offers a highly secure and robust architecture with best-in-class backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity policies and procedures. All of these factors are IT concerns. Now let's take a look at Aavenir. Who are we? We are a source to pay SaaS technology provider, and we have built a suite of SaaS products that help you drive automation, seamless workflows, and realize those efficiency gains across the various activities within your source to pay process. And when we set out to build these products, we took one decision that today is proving to be groundbreaking for us. And that was to build our product on the ServiceNow platform. By that reason, our products leverage, number one, that common data model that we just talked about that is offered by ServiceNow, which can be easily managed and maintained by your IT team. Number two, our application's user interface are also built using ServiceNow's portal designers, and hence that can be easily maintained by your IT team again. If you've ever needed to change the layout of your user interface, your IT team already has the skills and experience to do so without adding any extra burden on them. Number three, our application offers seamless business workflows that automate your procurement process. And your IT team can once again easily make changes to that due to the simple point and click nature of the workflow configuration. They do not need to learn a new technology for it. They don't need to hire new people. So it's very much well within the existing set of skills, people, and competencies that they already have. And lastly, again, but not the least really, when it comes to business continuity and disaster recovery, ServiceNow offers the most comprehensive data backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity procedures and policies. All of Avenir data is stored within ServiceNow, and so that also applies to all the Avenir data. So we've just seen 4 points that are top IT concerns and that are automatically addressed just because we are built on the ServiceNow platform. That's the alignment. And not to forget, all of this that we've just discussed, it comes along with meeting the business needs of the procurement function. So this is what I would say a perfect example of aligning business needs of procurement with IT's top concerns. Well, by now, I'm sure it should be amply clear about how using ServiceNow as a platform strategy, you can easily bring that alignment between procurement's needs and IT's concerns by choosing from technologies that are built on that ServiceNow platform. And well, just to reiterate, all Avenir products are built natively on the ServiceNow platform. And so you get 100% pre-aligned software as a service applications from us. Next slide, please, Maddie. With all of that said, now what I really want to do is give you a glimpse of our CLM application, Contract Lifecycle Management, that leverages the ServiceNow platform workflow capabilities to give you an enterprise contract application that puts together the end-to-end contracting workflow, starting from contract initiation, execution, monitoring, and management, and compliance. This experience, by the way, is further enhanced with artificial intelligence when, say, for example, if you initiate a contract with a third-party paper, in that case, our application automatically reads through the third-party paper, the contract, the draft, which you've received from the other party, and it identifies all the important metadata from the contract automatically, such as start date of the contract, contract type, name of the vendor, governing law state, payment terms, and more. And all of this is by using artificial intelligence. You can imagine that this saves so much of time in the contracting process. If any one of you have dealt with third-party paper, that's time consuming and that's tedious because you have no control over the format. You have no control over where a certain piece of metadata appears in the contract. It's a big time saver. Maddie, next slide, please. As a final point, and before I actually get into showing you a product demonstration, I really want to bring up one case of a very happy customer story here, and that is Reese. They are based in Australia, and they have been happily using our CLM applications since quite a while now. So while you can see the challenges they had before Aavenir CLM was implemented, you can see that up here on the slide. What I really want to call out is the immense support their team, their business team, and our implementation team received from their ServiceNow technical team. That they really loved the fact that our application is so native to the platform. They never had any objections or concerns, worked with us like a partner. When it was time to deploy that application to production, we just had to tell them what to deploy. Their team already knew how to deploy. Such was that amazing orchestration of the workflow between our team and their team. And so I'm sure that by now you have a pretty superb understanding of the crux of our messaging today about how ServiceNow as a platform can be a very potent strategy to bring in that alignment between your procurement team and your IT. All right. Now with that, it's time to jump into a short little tour of our product. Maddie, may I share my screen, please?
Yes, please.
Maddie, I'm still not able to share my screen.
Just give me a second. Yeah, you should do it now. You'll be able to do it now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So, okay, let me get rid of the Zoom panel first. Okay. So I'm starting with a very familiar, if you've used ServiceNow in your organization, I'm sure this screen is very familiar to you. You log into ServiceNow, you get this kind of a user interface, which you're looking at right now. I'm logged in as Lisa Gill. And when you have Aavenir applications installed in ServiceNow, this is how you launch them. All the Aavenir applications appear here. And to launch contract flow, you just hit this launch contract flow link here. There's no login required. So it's literally zero login. All you have to do is log into ServiceNow. Once you're logged into ServiceNow, the Aavenir application opens up with that same user credential. So I'd logged in as Lisa, and so Aavenir opens up with Lisa logged in. And so this is the landing page of Aavenir contract flow. And we are looking right now at a contract manager's dashboard. So essentially, this is what sourcing specialists and sourcing managers in your organization would look at. So when we say contract manager, we are talking about the sourcing manager, the sourcing specialists who are going to drive a contract process from end to end. Fundamentally, at its very base, this is a global centralized repository for all your contracts. So you have thousands and thousands of contracts across your enterprise, no matter what scale your enterprise is, how big it is, how many geographies you're present in. This can be that one single window or repository for all your contracts. And because of that, it feeds into all of these dashboards that you see here. And at the same time, it just makes searching and accessing those contracts just so much more easier. You can see that global search box is available right here. It's full text search with fuzzy search included. Anytime you want to search any contract based on any content or even half content or partial content, just type it in there and hit that search button and you'll get your contracts. But there's more here. So we intended, the way we've designed this screen, we intended to make this more productive for the sourcing specialist, for what we call as contract manager. And for that, there are two aspects here that are visible right on top, right here. One is visibility into all the contracts that are spread across all the different stages. Now, when you've been working with contracts manually, you know that you could never get this kind of information unless you kind of, took that much effort to maintain this in Excel or something like that, or a SharePoint. But this is instant visibility. You can immediately see the spread of contracts across different life cycle stages from, 93 contracts in draft right now, 45 contracts in approval, 29 contracts in signatures. That's interesting. Why are 29 contracts still waiting in signatures? Because if you think about it, contracts that are waiting for signatures, you've done everything. You've negotiated it back and forth. You've got the approvals. You just need to get on with the business, and it's just signatures is pending. So that's pretty good information and insight to have there. So you can kind of identify where the bottlenecks are and speed things up a bit and get on with that business, right? In those 29 contracts. So it gives you a lot of good visibility and insights into all your contracts within this repository. And that's pretty much within your organization. There is one more aspect. Now that you're getting all of this visibility, does it also mean that everyone can see every contract? Well, certainly not. Again, that's not how it's supposed to be. And so we control access to contracts with access control lists. Once again, a ServiceNow capability. So if you ever want to change the access controls as to who can control, who can see, who can modify what contracts, your ServiceNow team can once again do that for you. They can set up the access controls. depending upon how you want it. So that's number one. That's great visibility. But let's talk about productivity. So Lisa, who's logged in today as a sourcing specialist, she wants to really know what is it at the start of the day, Monday morning, what is it that she really has to work on? And honestly, I'll tell you, I find it difficult to just keep track of the tasks, my daily tasks that I need to do. Honestly, we are talking about contracts here. So that's obviously a different ballgame. It's more challenging in the sense it's, compared to my few tasks, keeping track of the contracts that you're working on is, of course, more important. But this, my contracts list here, makes the whole thing very easy. Let me tell you how. So when you start your work day, all you need to do is focus on the contracts that you see here. So the ones that are active and in effect, you don't need to worry about them anymore because those are already in effect. They've gone through the life cycle and the contract is activated. And well, whatever business transactions have to happen are probably happening. What you need to worry about are these two. These are still in the draft stage. And so you need to get them moving. So this is what you would work on. And by the way, you had sent this contract, if you can imagine that scenario, that you probably sent this contract to the supplier a week back for them to review and send it back to you, with the red lines. You can now see that the response has been received. So let me show you a couple of more. So look at this contract here. This one is in review, but it's in external review, which means you've sent it to the party, to the supplier, but well, they've not yet sent it back to you. So you don't need to worry about it. But the moment you see a response received, and this is all fully automated, you're not doing anything. You could just imagine a scenario that, you're kind of looking through this contract list, and all of a sudden this status will update to, response received. And that happens when they actually send that email back to you with that red line copy. Aavenir automatically detects that, captures that email, changes the status, and you can immediately see that, oh, the supplier has sent back something to me. And so I need to take some action, some further action. And that's how you know exactly what contracts you need to focus on to get things moving efficiently. So we'll talk about a few more things that you can see here later on, but let's move on to something else. So there's this contract here. Contract number 16143. I believe I have this open here. Yep, that's contract number 16143. So what I want to show you here is how does Aavenir, store and represent a contract? What is a contract in Aavenir? It's a combination of two things. Number one, metadata. Every contract will have metadata. Contract name, contract type, vendor, payment term, governing law, start date of the contract, end date of the contract. So all of the metadata you can see here on the left-hand side, again, very flexible layout, configurable layout. If you want to, change the layout a bit or add new metadata fields here, everything can be done and can be done by your ServiceNow team. The right-hand side, you see the contract itself, and you can pretty much see here that this is a redlined copy that has been received, and that explains this status, response received. The response that has been received has red lines. The third thing that you will notice here is you can see the full workflow that this contract is expected to undergo. So right now it's in review, the response is received. At some point, you will send it for approvals. At some point, you'll send it for signatures. And finally, that contract becomes an active contract. But there's a couple of things more. And that is very interesting and important. When you scroll down here, you see the contract attachments, and you click that hamburger sign. We also capture versions of the contract throughout the negotiation cycle. So you see the revision number 1.0, 1.1, and as and when you receive more redline copies back and forth, as you go back and forth with your suppliers, these versions are captured automatically. There is no user intervention required. These are captured automatically. Okay, let me show you another example of a different contract, number 16181, which has undergone this entire life cycle and is now an active in effect contract. And that's why you see the metadata all locked up. You cannot edit this. but take a look at what kind of approval flow it had gone through. So if at any point of time, let's say a year down the line, you want to see who approved this contract and on what terms, you can see exactly when that approval was initiated, what date and time, who, what did, what was the comment that they entered when they approved, what was the date and timestamp. And so you can actually see all of this information will help you even measure the cycle time of your approval processes. And if that cycle time is too long, you know that there's a bottleneck, and so you can do something about it. If you don't even know that, there's nothing much you can do about it. So pretty good information is captured across this entire journey that this contract undergoes. One more thing that I will just quickly show you, coming back to this contract, we also capture the contract email collaboration. If you see here, this was the email, the original email that was sent from the system, not from Outlook, from the system automatically for external review. And when the supplier sends that email back, Aavenir captures it and shows it to you right here automatically. So you're not actually having to use emails. He said, hi, Lisa, red lines attached. Here's the contract document. That's how easy it is. You're always going to be working within the Aavenir contract flow. All right, so let's switch gears to something else. So coming back here, a couple of more things which are very important I want to talk about right now is a lot of times, it's difficult to manage contracts that are due for renewal or contracts that are expiring. And you might end up in a situation where contracts just, if they were set to auto renew, they might just auto renew without you having realized it, which is, of course, not good, right? You don't have that control then. So Aavenir gives you that visibility. We have this chart that shows you expiring contracts. So according to this graph, there's 11 contracts expiring in 30 days, 7 contracts expiring in 60 days, and there is 11 contracts that are expiring in 90 days. But then you don't even need to come into Aavenir to see this information, because for all of these expiring contracts, you would get email alerts, notifications. So for every contract, you get three notifications out of the box. The first notification you will get at 90 days to expiry. The second notification you'll get at 60 days to expiry. And the third notification you'll get at 30 days to expiry. And if you come and tell us that our contracts take more time for us to manage the expiry and the transition, so can you give us a 120-day and a 150-day notification? Absolutely, that's configurable. That's again the power of ServiceNow, the platform. We could do that for you, or your ServiceNow team could as well do that for you. Either case, that's a big benefit for you. So from a contract flow perspective, this is what I wanted to cover today, but I'll show you one more thing which you may find really interesting. How do you manage compliance? How do you have visibility on compliance to contractual terms and obligations? And we do have an obligations dashboard as well that shows you all your obligations by category, the total count of obligations by different category. So you got 7 SLA obligations to monitor and keep track of. But here, this graph shows you the overall level of compliance across all obligations, across all your contracts. So who would be interested in this information? It's, of course, your senior leadership, maybe your general counsel, who's really interested in knowing just, tell me at a high level, how compliant are we in this organization? And so the more green you see, the more compliant you are. So that answer is very easy. It's 54.17% compliance as of today, according to this graph, of course. And this is, of course, my demonstration system. I'm sure in your organization, you actually can drive this compliance. It would be much higher than my demonstration system. But this gives you that visibility, because without this, you don't even know that answer. And then if you want to see compliance by category and by company, so we can see here, this stack shows us obligations for Acer, IBM, and Infocus. Let me get rid of Acer. Let me get rid of IBM. So for Infocus systems, here are the 6 SLAs. Here are the data protection, again, 4 of them. Here are the payment obligations, 3 of them. So I can see by company and by category, what are my obligations. So this is a 1 level lower information than this. It's more detailed. But that's not all. Ultimately, obligations need to be, there needs to be someone doing something about those obligations. There needs to be tasks assigned to people who can take ownership of those obligations and do whatever is necessary to fulfill those obligations. And so you get this obligation tasks by owner. So Lisa, who's logged in today, sees she has 12 tasks pending. And if she kind of knocks off those 12 tasks, she would basically move a lot of those obligations towards fulfillment, thus driving your organizations towards higher levels of contractual compliance. And not just that, I mean, if you were logged in as Lisa's manager, you'd still see that Lisa has 12. And so you could remind her. And of course, even if you don't, the system will remind her because there would be email notifications that she would receive as these obligation tasks reach or near their due dates. So that's the obligations dashboard. And so just going back full circle. So we just looked at the Avenir contract flow solution. How does the dashboard look, how it can help you get productive, how the contract lifecycle works, how does it give you that information and visibility into expiring contracts, and we looked at the obligation and compliance dashboard. So with that, I'll pretty much end my presentation here, and we'll switch back to the slide deck. Maddie, can you share the slide, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Vikram.
Right. So, Maddie, do you want me to cover this quick, or?
Yeah. So I'll take it over. So,
okay.
I'll be just sharing a link in the chat box. So basically, you can explore the resources and you can get the contract management value kit, wherein if you're planning to implement, if you want to check the ROI or are we ready? What is the assessment we need to go through? So there is a huge rich list of resources which you or your team can pass through and go through it. So please feel free to check this URL and don't miss an opportunity. Grab this opportunity to get the contract lifecycle management value kit. Okay, and with that, this ends the session for today. So I'm not seeing any questions for the moment, but yeah. So I think if you guys have any questions, this is the right moment to ask. Yeah. So one of the questions which I've got is just a second. I'm just running through. Yeah. So we will be distributing the recording. You will be receiving an email in next 24 hours. Which you can share it within your internal team and other stakeholders. Okay. Vikram, the next question which I have is, do I need ServiceNow to start using contract management app of Aavenir?
The answer is no. So even if you don't have ServiceNow, well, ServiceNow is our vehicle of delivery of our applications. If your organization does not use ServiceNow, that's fine. We'll still OEM the whole thing to you. We'll deliver it on our ServiceNow instance, but that really shouldn't matter to you. For you, it's just going to be an Aavenir application, Aavenir contract flow that's using ServiceNow as an underlying platform of delivery. That's pretty much how it works.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'll just give it a couple of seconds so there are no new questions coming in. Okay, so I think I'll just end today's session. Sorry, I got one more question just now. The question is, Vikram, this is for you. It's about, so how is your licensing relationship with ServiceNow platform? When Aptus released their CLM on force.com, their license fees were high because of what they had to pay Salesforce. So basically, they want to understand our licensing structure.
All right, this is a great question, very interesting question. And by the way, I used to work with Aptus, so I am aware of what you're talking about. So yes, I know that point that you've mentioned here. Oh, great. So with Aavenir, all you do is you just license with us. So there's nothing else that you have to pay. You just license with us. It's a very simple model, per user per annum model, and we only we monetize the contract manager licenses. the requester licenses and the administrator licenses. Approvers and read-only users are free.
Okay, so I hope that answers your question. And I would suggest is, do get back to us. We'll be happy to talk further and, and discuss further. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just give a couple of more seconds if there are any more questions. Okay, so no more questions and we are right on time. It's been 45 minutes. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking your time out. Thank you, Nick and Vikram, for giving an amazing presentation on future of procurement and how aligning with IT can give you the best of both worlds.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.